Welcome to the Cart Barn Podcast. This week we have Stewart Cink rejoining the podcast to recap the President's Cup win. The President's Cup was held a couple of weeks ago, and the U.S. won 18.5 to 11.5.
Stewart was a vice captain on this year's President's Cup team, and that's following his vice captainship at last year's Ryder Cup team. So he's gained some valuable insight into the process. He's going to share a little bit of that, how they come up with the pairings, and some other dirt on what goes on inside the team room. So we're looking forward to another episode with Stewart.
Let's get to this week's podcast with Stewart Cink. Welcome to the Cart Barn Podcast. I'm Chris Lemley and joined by co-host Greg DeWalt. Today we're pleased to have the return of Stewart Cink to the Cart Barn to discuss the President's Cup. The U.S. won 18.5 to 11.5, and Stewart was an assistant captain to Jim Furyk. Stewart, welcome back to the Cart Barn.
Thank you, Chris. Greg, good to be on.
Good to have you back. So today we're going to get you to dish some dirt on the inside scoop on the President's Cup. What exactly do vice captains do?
We have to be really good at staying out of the way. Is the main. You have to be kind of an errand boy in a way. You got to caddy in a way without carrying clubs really, but all that stuff I really enjoy doing. The main thing, I'm in jest, of course, but the main thing is you want to offload some of the responsibilities of the captain onto the group of us. In our case, there was 4: Kisner, Justin Leonard, and Brant Snedeker, and myself. And there's just a lot to do for the captain, a lot of decisions to make, a lot of opinions that one person's opinion might not be the right one, and the captains realize that, and so they get everybody in a room and kind of talk about pairing along with the statistical team that we use. Talk about pairings, talk about formats, talk about the course, talk about the media, a way to handle all kind of different scenarios and situations that come up, and that plus all the other things I mentioned before. Yeah, I mean, if the caddies want tees in the whole locations that we think they're going to be using, I volunteer for that job. Stuff like that. You need to run your umbrella back to the team room because the rain cleared out on the 7th hole. I'm your guy. That kind of stuff.
Day one, the U.S. jumps out to a 5-0 start, just looks really good. And then the next day, the international team rebounds with a rout of their own. Walk us through, not only from your perspective, but the perspective of the team and in contrast to those 2 days.
Well, the first day is pretty simple. I think both teams probably, I obviously can't speak for their team, but I know what I think they did and what we did for sure was we had the first day set a long time before the President's Cup, like weeks. We knew the first day. And we went out 5-0, which is, bravo. Everybody's happy and we did great. It played awesome. But the second day we get blanked, and we had it lined up too. But then the way that you have to think about these the sections, the way they all line up. In the President's Cup, you have a session on Thursday, 5 matches, and then the same thing on Friday, different format, but 5 matches. And then Saturday, you have 2 sessions of 36 hole day, and then only 4 sessions. So you got 4 players sitting out. So really the way you have to plan for the first round is by planning for that afternoon on Saturday first. Who's going to be sitting out? Who's going to pair up together in that alternate shot? And then you kind of grow the whole thing back to the front from there. And that was the toughest session that we faced as far as a planning session with me and the other assistants and Jim Furyk and the stats guys in the room after we got blanked on that Friday, because we had to decide, are we going to change things on our Saturday afternoon, which is kind of like the whole anchor of the President's Cup, or are we going to keep it the same? And so we spent, you don't have a lot of time from the time the matches finish until the pairings are due. You have 45 minutes. And by the time you scramble into the room and allow time to get over to the media center to do the pairings, you only have about 25 minutes. So it's a lot of processing and poking holes and different ideas to happen in 25 minutes, especially when it's your it's the nerve center of the whole thing, the Saturday afternoon. You got to plan it. Then you get Saturday morning sort of set, and then you go back to Friday and Thursday. It's the sort of order that you have to plan. And so we deliberated and kind of threw out all different possibilities and looked at the strokes gained numbers and who's playing great and what's your heart saying. And really, we only ended up changing one pairing from our original plan. And I was actually very proud of all of us for not being too reactive about that. Got blanked on Friday.
Yeah, who put the Friday pairings together? I'm assuming it wasn't. I'm gonna say it wasn't you.
Kevin Kisner was responsible for Friday. I was out sick that day, and I didn't have anything to do with that.
So, when you say stats, guys, kind of give us a little insight what stats you're looking at and how the pairings come together.
Well, you got two kinds of stats out there. There, and we have two organizations that the team works with. There's one called Tour IQ, and there's one called Scouts. And what Tour IQ does is kind of the day-to-day course setup. Like, okay, number 3, the hole in the front right. And from our past data, we see that the front right bunker and the front right pin is absolutely not a good place to be. You'd rather be by the cart path 50 yards left of the green than in the front right bunker. Using the shot link data from over the years, you can kind of tell it's just not a good place to be. There's other times when their service is handy because you may look at a hole location sheet and it says the pin is back 4 from the edge, and it's okay, conventional wisdom says you can't short side it, but their data would say actually 75% of the players left the green get up and down. So wow, you can actually be aggressive to this pin. So that's Tour IQ. That's what their role is. It's kind of on the course that day, based on the setup, the wind direction, how much rain we've gotten. Some players use that. Some players kind of just don't. They just go by feel. And then the other companies, Scout, what they do is a little bit more they analyze player profile and course fit and come up with let's take the low hanging fruit and eliminate the possibility of these two players playing together because their games are too similar for alternate shots. Or these guys in best ball, they both play great and they're going to shoot probably 4 under average on the score. They're going to birdie the same. And in best ball, if you got two guys that shoot 4 under, that's pretty good golf. But if they both birdie the same holes, then the team shoots 4 under and you get beat about 5 and 3. Mm-hmm. So they just do a really good job of course fit, and they apply each player's statistical profile to the course and figure out what holes players should tee off on, odds or evens for the alternate shot, how they pair up, which players don't. And then the stuff that computers can't tell, let's say that two players' wives just hate each other and they don't want to walk together. You can't ignore that kind of stuff. You got to factor that in. Maybe there's been something in the past that's just we've seen a trend. Oh, maybe Sam Burns and Paul Morikawa just play terrible when they play with each other in stroke play events. I'm not saying that's the case, but something like that would factor into. But that's the way that Scout does things. So they're there for pairings, and they would, if we're in there, saying that Friday afternoon, we got blanked, okay, and we kind of go back to drawing board. Let's say that Jim's all right, I want to start over. We're going to do all new pairings for the next afternoon and alternate shot session. And let's say we're all right, let's put, we really like the idea of putting Tony Finau with Side the Golf. The Scout guys can, on a laptop, they can run that scenario, and they can do a 10,000 round simulation in about, 20 seconds, and come up with that pairing is in what percentile of strength of our pairings on our team. And if it's anything under about low 80s percentile, they red light it. And they basically just say, Scouts would not approve that pairing. And if it's anything over low 80s, they'll be if you guys feel strongly about it, we'll green light it. So that's how they work.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So would it be safe to assume that running that kind of analysis prior to captain's picks is also done?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you've got what you have when you have captain's picks, in this case, you had 6 qualifiers and 6 picks. You have 6 holes in your lineup that you can basically just hand select. Like, okay, we definitely want someone who's going to hit more than the average number of fairways, or we definitely want someone who can carry it over 302, stuff like that. So it makes the decision making easier because you have to wade through. It sounds like a lot of information. You actually have to wade through less information because they just kind of lob off the bottom half of whatever is like not going to make sense at all, and then leave you with a smaller group of things to.
How much discussion, even after you have all those statistics, or input, do the players have? Say, and again, using say, Colin and Tony, say, they like each other or they don't like each other. Do they Tony say, hey, I would rather play with so and so or anything? Does that go into it or?
Well, here's what happens there. The players all just want to play every match. There's really very few players actually say, unless there's an injury or something like that, there very few players say, I don't think I can go all the rounds. I need to rest. Everybody wants to play. So that's kind of a given that you can't really depend on if someone is telling the truth or not. And so what we do then, and what I've actually learned this from Jim Stewart, he's very good about using the caddies because the caddies will tell you the truth. And you can always get good information from the caddies. They'll say, like, you know what, my guy just, I don't know. I just don't think my guy doesn't want to play with him. I don't think they want to play with each other. And that's like, if the caddy is willing to say that, willing to like stick his neck out and say, that's to us is like a big enough red light. We're like, okay, cross those guys off. And then on the other side of the pairings thing, sometimes players just say, I really want to play with like my friend, and friend pairings kind of go one or two ways. They'll always pan out, but I mean, there's no pairing that's going to always pan. I mean, they're all too good on both sides. But sometimes the stats just go against a friend pairing. Like, Scotty and Sam are the two. They're probably the two besties on the team. They're like joined at the hip practically, and they pair up really well too statistically. But their record, if you look at it, not that great. So if you go back and look at their record from Charlotte, which is where they got the bulk of their experience playing together, they were the second best team for the United States that week. They played awesome and they shot low, but their opponents shot incredibly, so they lost. So does that mean that they don't make a good pairing, or that mean that it was just unfortunate for them? It's hard to say. That's where the team, the decision making gets pretty dense and thick and heady, and you got to really kind of keep yourself clear.
In the team room, I mean, are caddies, entourages allowed in the team room post round, or is it basically just players and vice captains?
There's the team room, and then there's the meeting room. The meeting room is kind of like, all right, everybody's out there, players, wives, caddies. We have a support staff. We're about 75 people as a whole team, including all the support folks.
Wow.
But then the meeting room is behind closed doors, and that's like, okay, we need some quiet. And that's when 8 or 9 of us would go back and sit down, and we usually have a media person, not media necessarily, but more like PGA Tour media relations person that's kind of assigned to us, just to kind of make sure we're on time, and not always a strength for us golfers. But that's one thing that I should mention too, that when I was playing on these teams, it was pretty much players and wives and girlfriends and captains in the team room, and that's it. And nowadays, the caddies are so much a part of the team, and they're completely part of the team room. Like, they're part of most of the meetings. I mean, not necessarily the pairing stuff, but they're a part of everything else that happens in the team room. And I love that because I've always felt like the caddies should be part of the teams anyway, and they totally are now.
Well, speaking of caddies, the head caddy Fluff, I saw was
Fluff.
there. Did he play a part in any of that, or was he just kind of there as a support guy?
Fluff was there as a caddy captain, which every cup we played, every Ryder Cup and President's Cup has a caddy captain. Typically, it's the captain's caddy who plays that role. And they just are basically another assistant. He drove the cart for Furyk, and, we walk most of the time, but sometimes, especially the captain, needs to get from one place to the other fast. Fluff would be his chauffeur.
He was the guy.
He was the guy. He just got a hip replacement about, I don't know how many weeks before, but not many. And so he was hobbling, but doing pretty decent, and he made it all the way through that. So it was good to see old Fluff. Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
How much input do the vice captains and captain have during the play? I know at the Ryder Cup there was some stuff about shot selection or club selection. Do you guys offer a ton of advice out on the course, or?
Well, this is where the stay out of the way part comes in. That takes a certain skill, just to shut up. And advice actually is covered by the rules in the President's. There's 3 captains that are allowed to be advice givers during any session, and you can change it from day to day or from session to session, but you can't change it once the session starts. So typically what we would do is the assistant captain who is assigned to like the first match out wouldn't be as an advice giver, because there's really no advice to give, right? The players are learning the course as they go. But then we would always tell the caddies in the group and the players, anybody really, if you notice any surprises about the way the ball's flying or it's spinning or whatever, let us know and we'll radio it back. And that's what we did if you're in the first group. If you're in the back groups and you're one of the advice givers, you can take that information and you could just wait on the second shot on a par 4, by the way. Like let's say number 2, one morning we played in really early conditions. It was foggy and it was a little breezy. And Ted Scott told me that Scotty played his second shot on number 2. It was 138 to the hole, and he played it 150, and he hit it pin high. That's good information for a guy like Scotty Scheffler, because he's a pretty solid most of the time. So that was the first group. So we were able to radio that back, and group after group after group comes through, and they want to know, like, okay, they found out that Scotty's telling, not just Scotty, but anybody in our team, how far is it playing? And Scotty's just really good about doing numbers. Numbers are like a language that translates to everybody. Colin Morikawa is a little bit more like, I don't really talk numbers. I talk like a soft 8-iron. And that's not as helpful. But when Scotty and Ted Scott, his caddy, when they talk about the distance of a shot, they talk about it in terms of numbers, and that's very helpful. And players behind started looking. And that is just a crucial piece of information that removed a little bit of doubt from them. And that's the kind of thing you can do on the course. When you're on the par 3s, for instance, if there's any surprises, you can say, well, the first couple of groups thought this shot playing 5 yards longer than they expect. And then you kind of bake that in. But if you're not one of the advice givers, you can't do anything except go get them.
Get them.
And then, there's a fine line between like encouragement and advice under the rules. I mean, you can kind of say like, you're keep your head up, but you can't say like keep your head down. Keep your head up, meaning like, keep your spirits going. That's great. That's encouragement. But keep your head down, kind of like, hey, I noticed something going on with your swing. So,
oh wow, yeah,
you got to and that's not policed. There's not a rules official listening to us or anything like that. But you just you kind of know where the line is. And if you're responsible for advice, then you can say whatever you want. Of course, I would never go to Wyndham Clark and say like, hey, Wyndham, I think maybe your grip's got a little strong. Let's adjust that.
Yeah.
But you can say like, hey, Wyndham, the first group thought this shot played 17 yards long, because of the wind. Just letting you know. You can do whatever you want with that information. But I thought that part of it was pretty fun too, and managing that and figuring out how to get advice back to groups where it mattered. When they wanted it, it became obvious that the group wanted to hear advice from the front groups on certain parts of the week. Not when the weather's perfect and warm and calm, but when it was a little bit of adversity out there, they wanted it.
Yeah. So you mentioned Colin, how he referred to things like in a soft 8-iron or whatever. So I guess there's some players that are more interested in the numbers, and some of them are just kind of want to play just by their feel. Is that
Yeah,
and just don't give me any information like that? Or
there's some players that just don't want to hear anything. They just want to play by their own, feel, and that's fine. That they also play great. But all these players, and I mean, I would throw myself in there too. We train with the TrackMan nowadays, and when the wind's blowing, we've learned how much it affects the ball, and I know what it feels like to hit a shot that is a 155 shot in my mind, but if it's blowing, it's going to go 135. So that translates to all them very well. They're used to it, and that's why the numbers thing works so well.
yeah.
How much did you learn? Like, you were vice captain at the Ryder Cup. How much was that an eye-opening experience for you, and how did it translate over to the President's Cup?
Easiest way to describe that is probably the contrast between the two. I thought Zach had a lot more decisions coming directly to him that if I was organizationally in charge, I would have been like, you don't need to be making that decision. Like, we don't need to be asking the captains how loud the TVs need to be in the team room, for instance, stuff like that. The President's Cup, it seemed like since it's run by the tour, they kind of already have this big template that they do for tournament play anyway, and they mostly applied it. And I felt like the captain had less decisions that were bombarding him. And so it seems like it's probably just a little bit lighter load for the captain in the President's Cup. Seemed better to me.
Well, would you say that would that transition into some of the success and lack of success between the two cups, perhaps?
It could, but we don't know what Europe does. It could very well be that they filter a lot of that stuff before it gets to the captain. Because in the President's Cup, the PGA Tour runs both sides. So our staff, we have the Team USA staff that's made up of PGA Tour employees that we see all the time, and we have a Team International staff that is made up of PGA Tour folks that we see all the time. And at the Ryder Cup, we got the PGA of America runs our side, and their side is run by Ryder Cup Europe, completely two organizations. So we don't know. We don't have a glimpse of what happens in their side, but for some reason, when we play over there, they are just more comfortable at playing, and we haven't been. And I just don't have an answer.
You played on a bunch of Ryder Cup teams and a bunch of President's Cup teams. Is there a difference in atmosphere, or I mean, is going into the matches? It seems like the President's Cup is not maybe as serious, and I know that's not correct, but from the public's perspective, it's like, we're gonna wax them in the President's Cup, and the Ryder Cup is more I don't cutthroat, maybe might be the right word.
Yeah, it's definitely more hyped up from the outside, probably. I think sports fans are tuned into it because it's like it's just such a fixture in the golf landscape and sports. I think a lot of people that don't really watch golf a lot still watch the Ryder Cup. President's Cup doesn't feel like it's gotten that edge to it, but if you're a player or a caddy, it does. When you're out there playing, or if you're part of the team like I was this year, nobody wants to lose that thing, and everybody's playing hard and very focused on it. So it's just maybe it's just a little bit of a matter of time before that intensity sort of leaks out into the media coverage and the fan opinion of the event. I don't really know. All I know is what it feels like to be a part of it on the inside, and it feels like pretty dang serious.
How much did you learn? I think one time you mentioned to me that Paul Azinger had a really good plan going into Valhalla, I think. Has that plan kind of carried over from team to team? Is that kind of a template for how things go now, like with a pod system or something?
Zero, which is a shock to me. It seems like that would have been something that we adopted because it was really well organized, and it took a lot of our plate as a player in 2008. I knew going in that my pod was going to be these 4 players, me and 3 others. And I was going to have my dinners with them, my practice rounds with them, and all my pairings were going to come out of those 3 other players besides myself. And it just really like streamlined the week for me. And I think all the players on that team would say the same thing. Hasn't happened again. I don't know why, but it hasn't. It has not happened. So one thing we certainly learned from that is that you can tell the players who to expect to play with and give them the Thursday, or in the Ryder Cup's case, the Friday lineups well in advance. And that sort of gives them, the players, the way they prepare for these tournaments, not just team events, but all tournaments, is you kind of have like a schedule that you do every week. You kind of arrive at the same time, you do your practice the same way, you play the same number of holes, you usually do a pro-am. It's just very regimented and routine. And you get these team events and it's like anything but that. It's completely decided by someone else and way different than used to. So we try to create some kind of like something that the players can see out there that says, all right, I know I'm going to play Thursday afternoon. That means I need to do this leading up to it. At least that's something they can sort of have as a semblance of a routine. And that seems to be a successful approach to it. And part of that came out of the Zinger model, where he wanted to make sure that everybody had their sort of expectations, nice and neat and correct before the event started.
Well, leading up into these events, how much time is actually spent by you as an assistant in discussions with the captain and or with players and getting their input?
There's I think probably more captain and assistant meetings. There's a lot of phone calls and Zoom calls. It happened to be that Eric and Justin Leonard played in a couple of the Champions events at the same time, and we had dinner a bunch during those times. And then there's some player interaction, a text here and there, like asking a guy, like, "How you doing?" Or certain players need hugs, certain players need to kick in the pants, and you don't always know exactly which one they need. Sometimes you're wrong. But before the pick, there's probably a little bit less player interaction, just because you don't want to you just don't want to let someone down and make them feel like they're going to be picked and then they're not.
Yeah.
But then once the team is made up and there are no picks or qualifiers, it's all just 12 players on the team and everybody's treated equally. You know who the players are that are willing to sort of give you more insight into their players or themselves. And then there's certain players, like, you wouldn't really want to go ask a rookie player much about like their experience in it, because if they don't have any, then you kind of already know what it's like. It's like, man, I just hope I get through this without crashing the car. But who those players are that are like, it's obvious the players that have played. I mean, in the top player in the world, Scotty Scheffler, is also very in tune with like other players, plays with them. He knows their tendencies. He knows who gets along and who doesn't. He's just a really good resource to talk. He's a leader without being like a vocal rah-rah kind of guy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, do players leave with hard feelings against captains? Like, I can't believe Furyk sat me out in the Friday session. And do those feelings, are there hard feelings after the event, especially when maybe you lose?
Yeah, probably. Probably so. I mean, there's certainly a player to captain sort of relationship that develops that, if a weird something happens and you get put on the bench. Well, we don't like to say anyone getting sat out, because there's a definite purpose to using that rest session. If nothing else, then, the singles records have indicated over the years that players that play all 4 matches leading up to singles don't do that well. So you need the singles points from their top players. And if somebody needs a rest, then you don't say like, "Hey, you're sitting out." That's changed over the years. It used to be kind of like, we're sitting you. Now it's like, we need you to rest. So, but yeah, I mean, like this year, I got really close with Cy Golf. He was probably the guy that I grew the most as far as who I know. I didn't know him that great going in, but we really got a lot closer during this President's Cup, and he's fantastic. But he didn't play Saturday. He sat out morning and afternoon, and that was tough for me because I was just kind of getting in with my relationship with him. And then I told him, like, look, there is a possibility you don't play tomorrow. He's like, I'll do whatever for the team. And he ended up not playing. And I felt pain for him, because I know he wanted to play so bad. And it doesn't mean that we didn't think he was like playing well enough to be on the course. It was just the way the pairings draw up. It's complicated. But that I developed a relationship with him where it hurt me for him to sit. I wanted him to play. I wanted him to get the full experience. And he did. He played 3 matches and he got 1.5 points. It's pretty good for a rookie. It's really good.
I guess with all the statistical data too, it helps to when somebody's not going to play, you can point to that kind of data too that say, hey, this isn't a gut feeling. This is a statistical decision.
Yeah. And I think everybody understands that it's a little bit of a both situation. And, third of your team has to sit out on Saturday, both sessions, 4 out of 12. So it's not like you're the only one.
Go back to like your first time playing on a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup. How much has that changed? The statistical aspect changed from then till now?
It's changed like from 0 to 100. I mean, it's a huge part. Analytics is a huge part of it now. When I first started playing, I remember my when I was on the Ryder Cup team my first year, Curtis Strange was the captain, and the first time all the players got together after the picks and everything were made, he asked us going around the room kind of like, all right, anybody have anybody they want to for sure play with? And I was like, well, David Tom's one of my best friends. He's on the team too. I would love a chance to play with David Tom. And Curtis was like, that's enough from you, rookie. That was Curtis's reaction. So I don't think he like ran 10,000 simulations before he said that. But he asked everybody. I responded, and he said, shut up. And I didn't play with David Thompson, the Ryder. Nowadays, it's a lot more like if let's say Cy, being a rookie, came and said, I really want to play with Colin. We grew up in the same town. We're pretty much the same age. I've played with him since I was 11. And I love him, and our games complement each other. We'd say, well, let's see how you guys work in alternate shot. 10,000 simulations, and 20 seconds later, we'll be like, you guys are a 92 percentile. If you guys want to play with each other, go get it. And they did. They played each other. They played and won the first. No, they played best. Is that right? They played best ball, and they won. I think they played alternate shot the second day too, and they did not win. But a case like that, yeah, the stats made a huge difference because in the past, I might have been, not me necessarily, but Stewart might have been more like Curtis Strange and said, shut up, rookie. And this, maybe me and David Thomas would have been the all-time great USA pairing and brought the Ryder Cup to like a new height in Team America golf. Never got a chance.
It'd be interesting to see what the data would say on that one.
Who knows? I mean, I'm always surprised. Conventional wisdom back in the day was alternate shot players are accurate plotters, Jim Furyk style golfers, and Stewart Cink style golfers are more best ball. Like I never hit that many fairways. I was a little bit longer hitter and was explosive in birdies, but I could also be out of the hole maybe 2 times or 3 times during the round. That is not the way it is anymore. Not at all, because it's all about shot by shot, course fit, driving, tendencies, putting, short game. It's just so much more of like a statistical mech like this than it is about like keep the ball in play, keep it in front of you. That's old thinking. It just doesn't work anymore.
When you look at team sports in general, the head coach is usually the hard butt, and then the assistant coaches are kind of the good cops, and the head coach is the bad cop. Were you guys were the vice captains good cops?
We're all good cops. Yeah, everybody was a good cop. There's because we've all been in that situation, and we all feel for the player at any time when they have to be told that they're not playing, or that we're not going to pair them with the player that they specifically asked for, stuff like that. We understand, and so it's way more good cop out there now than it's ever been. Um, I mean, I did miss 13 years. From 2010 to 2023 was a blackout for me where I wasn't part of the team. So in that time, I think there was the bad cop stuff just pretty much expired. It's gone, and it's almost all good cop now. But it's grown up cop is what it is. It's like maturity, and you don't need that. You need maturity and honesty and complete transparency, and that's what it is nowadays.
This is pretty insightful. Going back a little bit, thinking about the alternate shot stuff. I know that the golf balls are all so good,
Yeah,
but people do play different balls. How much is that even a consideration in any of the statistics or analytics that's run?
it's an enormous consideration,
Yeah.
and the best example this year is that we all kind of laughed at when the stats guys scout. Now, if you remember when we first started, Scouts
Mm-hmm.
is the one that did the sort of course fit and the pairings mesh and how everybody sort of comes together, strength and strength. They had Tony Finau and Russ Henley at the top of every session. Like, these guys scare up the best in every section, and it's not even close. They're like the 100 or the 99.5 percentile pairing in every session. Tony
Wow.
and Russ. Well, you would think that makes our decision easy, except for one thing. Tony uses the lowest flying, least spinning ball of anybody, and Russ uses the highest flying, most spinning ball of all. And I think Russ would be okay with me saying this. Russ is a little sensitive to the kind of ball he uses. So we had to take our pairing statistically that everybody said it's a no-brainer, and we couldn't even consider it because they couldn't. I think Tony would probably have been able to adjust, but Russ would not be very strong driving that golf ball because Russ needs some launch and height help, and Tony needs keeping it down and flying lower help.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't use that pairing because of it. So we had one tailor-made golf ball on the team. I mean, tailor-made. Look, I work for Titleist in a way. I get paid by Titleist to say that Titleist is the greatest ball, and I believe that it's the best. But it doesn't mean that I don't think TaylorMade and Strixon and Callaway can also make really good golf. I know they do, and I know the players work their hands off to make sure that they are getting the optimal performance. But when it comes to pairings time, and you say, well, you know what? Let's put these two guys together. Oh, but Collins played a TaylorMade, and I don't think he can really ever hit a TaylorMade ball in his life. That's stuff you have to do ahead of time. So when we knew the pairings were going to be a certain way, we had the manufacturers send the golf ball to different players so that Keegan could hit a TaylorMade, and Colin could hit a Titleist, and Sam could hit a Strixon, because there's a chance those guys are going to pair up together, and they don't need to go through the entire fitting process, but they need just to know if there's going to be any huge surprises with the driver, with an iron, any distance issues. It's a big deal, but we eliminated that from the from being a major outcome shifter by just sending golf balls out in advance.
Well, that was smart. That's pretty interesting.
Well, I'm sure the other team does that too. I mean, we've got we used to do that. We did that back in the days when I was playing. I remember I was a Nike guy. I was one of those like outliers. So I played Nike for a lot of those years, and the Nike ball was good, but players that played Titleist didn't know that. They just knew that it wasn't a Titleist.
Mm-hmm.
I find that just about any golf ball that I hit goes the same distance. It's not far.
Well, those ones that come out of the water that have the yellow side, that look like they've been sitting down, like embedded in the soil down there. Those can curve a little on you, but you just you got to line it up right.
You got to play it. It's I mean, and you
There's a hint of truth in every joke.
I've been known to play the same ball for about 4 or 5 rounds. I'll have so
You can.
I
bet you
you
didn't
don't
play.
need it.
You didn't play that old 384 tour for more than 5 rounds, did you? Back in the day. You did.
I'm one of the few people probably left that remembers playing the British Titleist though down in Puerto Rico growing up.
Small ball.
Wow.
That was an awesome golf ball. I mean, it was like ping pong ball.
I remember I found one of those at Florence Country Club when I was little. And I was like, what is this? I didn't know there was such a thing. And it was an old one, but it was a small. And I played it a couple of times and it was really fun. It was like easy. The hole is huge when you putt it.
Yeah. Yeah. But so now we'll come down to the meat of this interview, Stewart. When, if ever, will you be a captain?
I don't know. I thought this year when Keegan Bradley got announced, I really thought I had a shot at it. And I was pretty surprised that it went the other way. And I don't know. I haven't had any explanations from anybody. I haven't heard from anybody about it. So I'm in the dark. But it could mean that maybe that I'm in consideration for one of the next ones. I don't know. It's not the kind of thing you go out and like politic for. You don't campaign for it. So I don't know. I hope I get a chance. I mean, last year and this year both, I learned a lot. Zach and Jim Furyk both did an excellent job. I've seen different styles and the contrasts and the way that things went, but I think I certainly have the capability of being an excellent captain, and I would love to do it. And so if I get a shot sometime.
Well, you may not campaign for it, but the Cart Barn is campaigning. So those of you that make decisions and listening,
I know they're listening. I mean, I'm seeing your listener numbers. I know they're listening. They got to be.
We've been very pleased and surprised and happy with the response that we're getting here, Stewart. So thank you.
We talked about this a little bit before we started, but you did meet a North Alabama guy when you were up there at the President's Cup, a youngster by the name of Tyler Watts, who's apparently got a pretty good future in the game. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the Junior President's Cup was on, I want to say it was like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or something like that in Montreal at a neighboring course. And when the day after the matches, the team came in to our team room and did a photo, and Charlie Hoffman was their captain. He's a good friend of ours, and especially like he's besties with Kevin Kisner. So they came in, and I already knew a couple of the kids. Jonathan Bird's son, Jackson Bird, was on the team. And so I didn't know that there was a kid from North Alabama on the team. I didn't have any idea. So I met him for the first time right there, and he told me he's from Huntsville, Alabama. I'm like, hello, that's my birthplace, Huntsville. And he knew that. So we got to talk, and he plays at Valley Hill, which I played a few times, played the State Am there way back, probably over 30 years ago. But just to get a chance to talk to a rising, soon to be big name in golf, I think, and also have the ties to the area was really cool. And I'm proud to know him, and I'll certainly be watching the name in the future.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. Is it surprise you at all the amount of successful players that have come out of North Alabama? Look at Nick Dunlop, Lee Hodges, all right from around here that are having great success.
No, it doesn't surprise me because I personally came out of there, went to Division I college, and moved on into the pros, and I still hope one day be successful as a golfer, but maybe one day. I think the just the junior golf program, it's you can't leave the name Chris Burns out of it.
Yeah.
He just had such a great legacy and just an imprint on the game. Just inspired kids to want to be good at competition golf. And I know he didn't teach every kid that came out of there, but he just had an impact. And you have to think that culture of competition and junior play had something to do with these players that are kind of emerging into, holding titles and, being on junior President's Cup teams and winning 2 times in their rookie year, like Nick Lemley did this year. Stuff like that. It's got to be something to do with the culture that Chris Burns and I'm sure others had something to do with it.
Yeah.
So just looking a little bit ahead with your Champions Tour schedule, is it kind of exciting to be playing different courses from what you knew from the tour, the regular tour, and kind of adds a little excitement to your new venture on the Champions Tour?
Yeah, it's exciting. And one of the things I love about being a professional golfer is the sort of like breaking down the courses and scouting them out and game planning, and gotten pretty proficient at doing that in a short amount of time. Like yesterday, I spent about 3.5 hours on the course, and me and my caddy kind of went through every hole. And now I feel like I got a really good game plan for this course. That's always something that's been interesting to me, and I love doing that. On the other hand, I really also love a lot of the tournaments on the PGA Tour and the courses. They're fun to play. They're obviously, the condition courses, and it's just always great to test yourself on those. I'll miss it. I'll miss, playing in more of those. But yeah, it's nice to see some new towns and new courses, and the old faces and names, new courses and towns is pretty interesting.
Well, I know that there is a new tournament on the Champions Tour this year in Little Rock. Are you planning on playing in that, or do you know yet?
Yeah, I'm planning to. That is the Simmons Bank, I think, is the sponsor.
That's
there.
correct. Mm-hmm.
New tournament, and so that this week we're in Raleigh for the staff SAS, and this is the last week of the regular season schedule, and then starting next week there's a 3-tournament playoff series, and the Little Rock event is the second one.
Played U.S. Senior Am qualifier at that course earlier this year. It's a really good golf course.
Cool.
Pleasant
Valley.
Pleasant Valley Country Club. Yeah, it's a little over 7,000 yards from the back. It's and I think that'd be a good golf course for you. So
cool. Yeah. Well, the golf courses out here are they're all they're good. They're not quite as stretched out and monstrous as the PGA Tour courses. They kind of keep it a little bit more manageable as far as distance, and it takes a lot of money and budget to grow like super rough. If Mother Nature doesn't cooperate.
Yeah.
So the courses are just a little bit sort of tamed compared to what we see on the PGA Tour. But all in all, I mean, you just look at the scores. I mean, the players on the PGA Tour champions shoot. Period.
They sure do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great competition. It's fun.
Good deal. I know you've got to go Pro-Am to go get ready for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta do.
What do you win in the Pro-Am? Have you ever won a Pro-Am, and what do you win?
Yeah. Oh, I've played in like 700 Pro-Ams, so I think my clip on winning is probably like 10 out of 700. And you win. I actually don't even know, because normally I'm not present at the prize giving ceremony for those wins. Usually it's like a handshake, and I don't even know what our team's got, but here you go, and love playing with you. Nice to meet you, and we have a great time. I actually enjoy the Pro-Ams, and I would like to think that the players that play in my group have a good time, because we sign up and we talk a little serious golf stuff and whatever, but it's mostly just a conversation and get to know a little bit more about them, and we'll have a good time. And if we win, we win. But I have no idea what they win. I know I don't win anything.
So you don't have merchandise credit at 10 stops from the past?
No. At no, Wakanda Club in Iowa, I have like a $250 shop credit. I got to get back out there before Christmas.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, well, speaking of a good time, Stewart, it's always a pleasure having you on this podcast. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time. Good luck this week in Raleigh and the rest of this year.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Always good to chat with you guys, too. Feels like we're just
Thanks,
sitting around
man.
having a beer
Yeah,
or
I
something.
know. Greg, that was certainly an insightful interview with Stewart. Some of the things he shared that went on behind the scenes, I just had never really considered. Really enjoyed all the different things that he talked about.
Yeah, I mean, he's such an awesome guest, and the insight he provides. I think we sit around at these watching these events and wonder why in the world are these guys paired together? And Stewart explained how it goes and why certain people aren't paired together. So it was great. He's an awesome guest. Hopefully he'll come back again and give us some more insight on life on the Champions Tour.
Yeah. Look forward to having him on again, and hope you guys are enjoying the different guests and topics that we're covering as we cover golf in Alabama on the Cart Barn Podcast. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next week.